Welcome to the Sage Women podcast, hosted by Melanie White and Dr. Nick Engera. We have real conversations with real women, health professionals, and coaches who share stories about perimenopause, menopause, and a range of women's health issues. Please subscribe so you get the latest updates every fortnight.
Hi, it's Melanie White here on the Sage Women podcast. I'm really excited to introduce today Dr. Prudence Hall, who is an obstetrician and gynecologist who now specialises in hormones for women and for men, and is a published author and runs menopause programs as well. So, Prudence, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you.
How's the weather in sunny California today?
Sunny in California like.
I'd love to ask you some questions about your background and how you got into the area of obstetrics and gynecology. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started your career before we start talking about hormones?
Yes, certainly. So I never thought I would be a doctor. It wasn't even on the horizon until I started really learning about myself. So when I started learning the different parts that made up this Prudence person, I realized that I have a deep love of humanity. And I grew up in the time of women's movements where women were empowered to help other women. I also grew up in a family with 4 girls.
Okay.
So I was very familiar with girls and girl problems. And I actually didn't study any science until I returned from Europe. I was in Europe for several years studying international relations. And I came back and it's like, how can I help not only women, but impoverished women or women in third world countries? And it came together like that. I should be a doctor, but not only a doctor, I need to be a gynecologist. And that's how it happened, just very organically. Wow. From who I am to the work that I do.
I'm wondering if something switched for you when you were in Europe and you were studying international relations. What did you see there that influenced your trajectory?
That's a good question. I saw really a desperate need to create health programs that were sustainable and that were renewable in a way, so that you didn't come in, fix a cataract and leave, but you really trained people and worked with the indigenous people, whoever they were, and the doctors in that country, and created programs that would keep growing and growing on their own. And so I did a lot of traveling in developing countries and went to different clinics and bought medical supplies and helped to teach people in different circumstances. I just loved it. So I haven't been able to fully explore that part of medicine, but I found that there's a wealth of people who need help right where I am at this point.
Yeah, I can imagine that must have been pretty eye-opening because obviously there are so many diverse experiences in women's health, and that's part of the challenge we face today is a lack of information about women's experiences with health and the diversity of experiences and the unique experiences that women have in health.
Incredibly vast. I approach each woman as an individual, not as, oh, you're somebody who has that, but oh, you are an individual who happens to be expressing that. It's like, I don't have cancer. Cancer is flowing through and it can flow out, so we are interacting with the environment and our nutrition and our sleep, our lifestyle and our hormones. And we're such individually unique, genetically and emotionally different women.
And I know that you love to get to the root cause of things. So tell me a little bit about how that works.
This was a big epiphany in my life. Jeff Bland, the father of functional medicine, Dr. Jeff Bland, really opened my eyes to a different way of putting together medical problems and solutions. So if the tree is dying and the leaves are turning brown, we don't paint the leaves. Okay.
Yeah.
Go to the roots and we water them and we deworm them and we bring minerals and things into the plant, and then it reblooms again. So in functional medicine, we say, well, what causes depression, for example? It can come from the outside circumstances. It can come from the inside. So some of the inside things would be low thyroid. The thyroid gland is right here in the neck, or being on the birth control pill, because that decimates your own natural hormonal basis, or going into perimenopause, which can occur around the age of, our late 30s generally. So low estrogen, low thyroid. adrenal burnout. Those are the little glands that sit back on the kidney. So all of those cause depression, and lifestyle, and a certain amount of genetics we're finding out. So you look at all of those things and you correct all of those causes, and then suddenly the person's happy again, supplementation. And do you need B vitamins? Do you need, you go into all of that. Are you being poisoned? Are you toxic? What's going on? And it's really quite easy to look at the different categories of things that can cause diseases to form. Like heart disease is no longer considered as, you have high cholesterol. I mean, it's multifactorial. You have to treat and correct all of those causes to reverse heart disease. It's not one disease. It's not like, syphilis or something. Okay, you treat with one antibiotic.
Yeah. It's really the intersectional nature of things. It's all of the aspects of somebody's environment, their lifestyle, their genetics, their experiences, the way they manage stress.
Absolutely. Their trauma, very important, their trauma.
Yeah.
So, it's looking at the wide variety of things that create a person's experience in their health.
I'm kind of interested in what comes up a lot. I know you've spoken a little bit about adrenals and thyroid, and I think you touched on inflammation earlier. Do you see some trends in the women that you're working with around some of those root causes?
So first of all, menopause is much earlier than it used to be 40 years ago when I started practicing. It was not at all unusual to see somebody who was 52 or 53 or even 54 who was starting to go into menopause. And now the age of menopause is much more like 44 to 49, 48. Very rare that I see someone who's 51 or 52 who's not completely in menopause. And when menopause starts, it doesn't end. Unless we receive treatment, we're not postmenopausal. We're in menopause for the rest of our life. And a lot of women don't know that, but it's much earlier. I think the symptoms are now being talked about. So I'm not sure if the symptoms are more severe than they used to be, but with more toxicity, more stress, less sleep, more multitasking that women do, more responsibilities that we have, I think probably the symptoms are more severe. Women are many different things, and it's challenging for us to take care of ourselves. Also, the conditioning that we're going to take care of everybody else and put ourselves last. That's heroic. Well, that's not advisable.
I feel like the conditioning has always been there, but now we've got the added layer of girl power where we can do anything we want, which is great, but it's hard to do all of those things and to do them all well.
Yes. And I think that if we're going to take on some big project, like some people want to save the world, it's like, know yourself, know who you are, because that truth that comes from your mouth and your own being that is expressed in the world is very important. So as we get older, that's really the wisdom of menopause, is that we know ourselves so much better. And once we get powerful and radiant and strong, we leave that menopause thing behind. Oh, we're unconquerable.
And that's where we should be, right? We have so much to offer the world, and there is a whole life after menopause. I know, because I'm there, and thank God. It's almost like you're in this tunnel and then there is the light at the end of the tunnel. And how can we make that journey in that tunnel a bit easier?
Oh, we can. Oh my goodness. I always say, don't accept menopause, run from it. Out of menopause. So I would say probably 85% of the women that I work with, let's say they're 48 and they have just night sweats, they're depressed, they can't think, they have ADHD, they've gained 20, 30 pounds, they're losing their muscle mass, they have no sex drive. These are terrible things. They're losing their hair, their beauty, they're developing heart disease and hypertension. Let's just say that's a typical person, which it pretty much is.
Wow.
It's not only the symptoms that arise due to menopause, it's the diseases that also occur. So let's take that person and we start replacing her hormones very gently and talk about her diet and get her to sleep. Melatonin is a great one. Magnesium glycinate is also very helpful. And with magnesium, you use it to bowel tolerance. So you take as much as you can without having diarrhea, basically. Melatonin, 5, 10, 15 milligrams, that's safe and very helpful for sleep. So then I just give a little more of these hormones, a little more of these. All the hormones need to be corrected in menopause generally. It's not estrogen and progesterone. It's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid, adrenals, D3, the sunshine hormone, our sugar, our A1C sugar. We don't want to have our cells coated with sugar. And then women actually are taken out of menopause, not just the symptoms. So I just don't want to paint the leaves green. I want to actually create real measurable improvement in disease formation and certainly get rid of all the symptoms. And that is very doable, Melanie. Very doable.
I love the way you say that. It's going to be a relief for a lot of women to hear that. I'm also curious about, during this process, what responsibilities does your patient have for their own well-being? What do they need to do differently to support this transition?
Great question. I just love your questions. So yes, it's a responsibility of any relationship coming together. Mother-daughter, husband-wife, whatever, an important relationship. And I always encourage, my patients call me Prudence. I don't want this doctor thing that might stop them from meeting me exactly where they need to meet me. So it's an equal relationship. They know their body much better than I do. And it's their responsibility to help me to learn what they believe, what they think, what they know, what their body does when certain things happen to it, so I can do this little tango dance with them. And I don't want any of your listeners to be afraid of doctors or to think that doctors just this, what should I say, this all know it. We are not. We're very human, and that's old style. Maybe our grandmother or something where we thought that doctors were kings and queens. No, we're working. We work for you and with you. And the second thing is nothing is stupid. I don't think I've ever, Melanie, heard a stupid question. And what my patients have taught me is incredibly gratifying. It's really cool to see how people think and the questions they ask. So ask questions, be bold, let us know, let me know, and you know what they need and what they want. I start by saying, what's the goal? What you need? Where are you headed? What do we need to add? And what do we need to take away from how you're feeling?
I'm not sure if you're aware of the recent Senate inquiry into perimenopause and menopause in Australia. It was it was initiated by a Green senator named Larissa Waters a year ago in September 23, and it's just reported a couple of weeks ago with 25 recommendations. And one set of recommendations, there are several that sit around the fact that there is, in Australia at least, no education in the medical curriculum for doctors and many health practitioners around menopause. So what we're finding here is that women are going to doctors who are dismissing them or unsure of how to treat them. And it's not their fault, obviously, but it makes then the trust gap wider. It makes the woman's experience of working with a medical professional more difficult. And so where does she go? To her friends, to Dr. Google, looking for information and support to make changes. So I love that you're talking about breaking down those barriers. And also we need to really be clear on who are the doctors that understand menopause and hormones and how to work with women in a way that is holistic and helps them to get through it a little more easier.
Well, bravo that this initiative has come into being. I was taught very little in my gynecology residency. It's a surgical specialty. So we learned how to do surgeries and C-sections and hysterectomies, all these surgical things. And I had a menopausal clinic, but they said check one lab value. If she hasn't had a period for a year, give her Premarin, which is pregnant horse's urine, see her in a year. So I came out of my residency and thought I was going to be good doing that. And patients were up in arms. And it was like, Prudence, please help. And so I did. I just took it on. I went to different countries. I learned about different types of hormone preparations and Oh man, I just studied and put together a whole different way of thinking about menopause that it's now, I would say, coming into, not because of me, but I think that, the knowledge is now coming around to say, look, this is a multifactorial approach. We can't just, do one thing. But one thing that is very disappointing in our government here is that the Harvard team, Dr. Abe Morgentaler, who's the father of testosterone therapy for men, actually, but he has a whole team around him who know every study, everything out there. And they went before our governing body for hormone regulation and for medicine regulation. They said, look, testosterone for women is very important. It builds bones, gives confidence, helps to prevent dementia, forward thinking, muscle mass. These are all parameters of aging, bioparameters of aging. And they would not, sex drive is so much more improved and orgasms are better. I mean, they had data upon data, and the government refused to allow women to use testosterone. They said, we're not approving it. So I've used it for now 40 years with women, but they still are not allowing women access to the kinds of medications that they need, as women uniquely need. And it's a miracle for, they become happy and much more confident and sensual. And I can't, it's anything except maybe they don't want us to build our bones because they have something better. Some pharmaceutical that's better.
Yeah. Is this a recent thing, or is this a long-standing thing?
I forget when Abe told me about it. I think it's been a year, maybe.
Wow. Something that really needs to be brought to light and have some attention by the sound of things. Yeah.
Women are unique, and we know that testosterone for men helps to prevent prostate cancer, heart disease, dementia. I mean, these are big people looking at this data and saying that. So it's been proven men how important testosterone is for them, and it's been proven for women, but they got it approved and we didn't.
Amazing. Wow. And then thinking about what women can do for themselves and lifestyle interventions, I hear that you're steeped in the principles of functional medicine, integrative medicine. What can women do in terms of lifestyle to get through this transition time easier and to help with their hormonal management?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we can do is we can eat a plant-based diet. So that is an anti-inflammatory diet. So we can eliminate dairy, gluten, corn, soy, some of these big dairy products, these big categories of food. And when we eat animal protein, if we choose to do that, it's pasture raised, not just for a day, but really for the lifetime of the animal. And eat beans, that's good. Beans are good. You want a low glycemic diet. So that's low in sugar. So you eliminate pasta or decrease it, pasta, bread, potatoes, rice, cereals. So rather than at the bottom of the standard food pyramid, it's all the grains, that's up at the top.
Yeah, we're flipping it.
Yeah, so plants are down here. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Get 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, menopausal women cannot sleep. They wake up, they can't sleep, fall asleep. But as I mentioned earlier, melatonin is wonderful. Melatonin is a pituitary hormone, brain hormone, and it is anti-inflammatory and also an antioxidant. And that, you put a little nail outside and it kind of rusts for our cells. That's called oxidation, where we actually rust. We have a lot of water, a lot of iron in us. So it's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and it helps the brain to rest. Also, you eat a little earlier. This idea of fasting is very good. Intermittent fasting. So you have dinner at 6, you have breakfast at 8. That's 14 hours. I mean, that's a pretty good fast.
And you're sleeping through most of it.
Thank goodness we're sleeping through most of it. And it allows us to detoxify better because the body's not so busy digesting food and doing all those things that, there's not so much food in it. We ate 4 hours earlier before we went to sleep. So then we can really detoxify better. So those were lifestyles. Exercise. I personally love Pilates. I love walking and aerobic stuff and stomach exercise. I'm always doing something. But being active, that helps to prevent dementia, it builds muscles, it builds your bones. I think it just, Melanie, I think it just makes us feel better. And nothing crazy. You don't have to do a full Ironman because that could be somewhat taxing and stressful for the body. We look at stress. We help to. My biggest stress is I'm driving and I'm driving late, so I'm driving fast. It's like leave 15 minutes earlier, Prudence, and that I just don't have that stress. And so identify the stress points in your life, figure out the solution, stick to it. Meditation is wonderful. I go up to Yogananda's lake shrine. He has a beautiful lake shrine 5 minutes away from where I live. And I go up there and meditate. And so meditation, gentle, smart exercise, good diet, good sleep, balanced hormones. Staying away from products, get all natural products, organic stuff, and food that's organic as much as we can.
Real food like our grandmothers ate.
Yeah, real food.
Yeah.
You like to cook?
I love to cook. I have a veggie garden. I'm a biologist originally, so I get into growing and eating my own stuff and being outdoors.
That is wonderful. Well, that is way up at the top. That's what we want to do. We can. I love that idea.
There's lots of tribes around the world, or at least a few, that don't really experience much in the way of menopause symptoms that I've read about, like the Hunza tribe and a few others. And it's interesting to see the diversity of diet, but also the focus on that plant-based eating, and they're moving, they're very active.
Yeah. I take care of a lot of Africans. I love my African patients. I take care of people from all over the world. And I really thought that the amount of plantain and bananas and soy that they ate would make their health better in terms of menopause. Now, most likely the people that I see are wealthier and maybe they eat a Western diet, but I see them suffering big time too from menopause. Some people have associated menopausal symptoms with viruses like cytomegalovirus and other viruses are perpetuating some of the symptoms, because I think it has worsened. But I'm happy to hear that statistic from some of the tribal people.
It's very interesting. I've also heard some different stories about exercise, and I wonder if you have opinions on this. As some people say that we need to not do high intensity exercise to avoid tipping over into that catabolic state of too much cortisol, and then others saying we must train heavy and not too long. And I'm thinking surely that must depend on the individual person and their stress levels. But how would you know that otherwise if you're not tested?
One of the exercises that I do, and it's a very safe exercise, is you take 12 minutes out of your day. And I have my phone like this, and I put it on just a stopwatch. And for 2 minutes, I'm just walking. Then it's actually not 2 minutes, it's 90 seconds I'm walking. Then for 30 minutes, 30 seconds, I hit it and I run as fast as I can. So this is high intensity interval training. Do 6 sets like that. So it's when it gets to 2, I know I've done 1 set, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 2, and because it's 90-30, 90-30. And the thing about it is that you actually only do 3 minutes of high intensity exercise with 9 minutes of, just slow wandering kind of. And that doesn't stress the body. So if you were to run, full blast 15 minutes all out, that does create a stress. But this high intensity interval, you get the burst and then you get the relaxation. So I call that smart exercise. And I think that most of us have 12 minutes during the day. Maybe only do 10 minutes and do 5 sets. That's good. And I think Pilates is very smart. I do a lot of Pilates because your back is stabilized. You can get a full range of motion with the bands and the straps and things that you use. You can finish it in 50 minutes. You're in and out just like that. And it feels like the body is not so stressed lifting very heavy weights. And I used to train with weights all the time with a great trainer, and he would never say you should just start. I mean, you should aim for the highest weights, not for women at all.
Yeah.
Unless you want to be a bodybuilder and build these huge, huge muscles, then you better be on testosterone and estrogen.
Tell us a little bit about your book, Prudence. I'd love to know more about that and why you wrote that book.
Well, I wrote that book because Suzanne Summers told me, and I'm not sure if she's known in
Yes, I know her, at
oh,
least.
yeah. So she said, Prudence, it's time to write your book. It's like, oh, Suzanne, you're writing plenty of books. And she said, I've interviewed you in a lot of books. We've had lots of conversations. I've interviewed you on TV and all this stuff. It's like, okay, what do you think I should do? And she said, well, each chapter is a different patient. And so I was inspired just with that conversation. It's like, it is selfish for me to keep this data to myself. And I give it away for free. You can get it on my website. Someone just told me that the site wasn't linking, but I'll make sure that it links. Something must have happened yesterday or something to it. But you download it for free. And the first chapter is about menopause. The second one is perimenopause. Oh, I don't even think I have a copy of it here. I have everybody else's book, but not mine. But it's called, yeah, I have the luminaries here. I should be right there too. It's called Radiant Again and Forever. And it's how do we take the body from where we are to a place of radiance and playfulness and joy? How do we really follow our bliss, as Joseph Campbell says? And at the end of each chapter, I say, this is how I treated the patient. Blum, 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 blum. And a lot of it's over the counter. So it's on sexuality, adrenal burnout, breast cancer and estrogen, perimenopause, the thyroid, just everything. And then the last 3 chapters are devoted to our potential. What can we do when we're 70 and we feel magnificent? Or 60 or 50, what can we do?
Yeah.
It's not only about doing this, who can we be? You know, some people get very disturbed. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's like be. You know, that beingness is really beautiful. And a lot of times we want to do, and that distracts ourselves from who we really are. But, you know, women have started schools and written books. They've painted extraordinary artwork that is unbelievable. They climb mountains. They
Yeah.
they conquer and support the world.
I love the way you describe that, because so many conversations I hear are quite negative around the experience of perimenopause and menopause. And it is hard, of course, but I think of my mother's generation, and a lot of people just went, oh, well, got no energy. I've done my job. I've had my children. I'm going to retire and sit in front of the TV and garden. And, you know, and I think the modern woman doesn't gel, you know. So we're thinking, well, who am I now? Who am I now that my kids have left home, that I've reached the peak in my career, that I've been through this menopausal transition and had this huge confronting transformation in some cases. Who am I and what do I do? There's a lack of confidence and a bit of fear. And I love the way you describe the fact that it's an opportunity, and to think about, who can I be? What can I become? It's a very empowering way to look at it.
It really is. So we have a woman who is being crushed by her lack of hormones, because hormones tell the cells what to do. It's our body software. So if you go to your computer and you're gonna, get some data back, but there are only lines there on your computer, it's not going to work very well. Same thing. When we lose our estrogen and all of our hormones, I balance about 12 to 14 different hormones for women and men. The body doesn't work. And what we're left with is in a broken state. So my urgent message is, please, how you manage your menopause will determine the rest 40 or 50 years of your life. And I take care of going to menopause at 35, 40, 42. So you manage your menopause. That's lifestyle. That's hormonal rebalancing. That's the inner work that we do, handling our trauma and getting to know ourselves and surrounding ourselves with loving, supportive people. That company you keep helps you find who you are. And, balance your hormones back to youthful levels using bioidentical natural hormones. And all the symptoms go away. So we're not left broken. I mean, my hormones are like someplace between 38 and 40 years old. And, in my stage in life, I mean, that's tremendous because we have the wisdom and the humility, that comes from earth, the ground, the grounding, and the lack of ego. We've just done too many things to be full of ourselves at this age.
Yeah.
And plus the hormones of a young woman and the sensuality and sexuality and beauty really of a younger woman. And there's no sitting around on the couch except maybe seeing a really good movie if there's one there.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing you talk about a kind of a youthful exuberance that comes from getting it right.
I love what you just said. We've become kids again almost. Like I'm goofing and playing with my friends, and people say, "You're goofy." It's like, yeah, I'm kind of goofy. It's life doesn't have to be this serious burden. I mean, I have no medical problem. Everything's good because I've been balancing my hormones since I was 48, so for many, many years. And I want people to have that sense of themselves, to reclaim it. If you've lost it, I promise you, you can reclaim yourself. You don't have to be broken. I've dealt with, I think, 40,000 women, Melanie.
Wow.
And Oprah sent me the hardest patients. And it's like, how long do I have her for? 5 days. It's like, are you out of your mind? I'm supposed to transform somebody in 5 days? But we did. That's not the norm. I was calling them every hour to see how they were doing. Not the norm. Usually it takes 2 or 3 months to really start seeing measurable and sizable,
Changes.
6 months. Oh my God. It's not free. But I'm sure doctors in Australia are doing this. Are they doing this? You have some good hormone experts there?
We do. Yeah. And we need more because, as I said, there is a huge gap in training and awareness. And so, for example, I went to a physiotherapist who was a young man a couple of years ago with a hip problem. And I said, well, I've been through menopause, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I've been through menopause and things aren't like they used to be with my joints. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, oh, haven't you learned about menopause? This is a physiotherapist. No.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So he's not aware of muscles and joints and bones and the changes that occur.
That's absolutely shocking. And I just want to kind of explore just for a minute what you mean by I've been through menopause. Because in my definition, you're perimenopausal, that's the 5-10 years before menopause, then menopause for the rest of your life with all the diseases arising and all the damage, unless you rebalance yourself, and then you aren't even in menopause. That's not postmenopausal. I mean, then you have youthful hormones again. So what do you think about that?
That's very interesting. So by the traditional definition, I'm postmenopausal. I had my last period perhaps 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. So when women come in to tell me that they're postmenopausal, I'm looking at their FSH, that's the brain hormone, and it's not, it's sky high. That's the brain hormone that says, I need more estrogen. So it's kicking that ovary, and it makes me feel kind of anxious too. And that number goes up every single year that we're in menopause. So I take care of 90-year-olds sometimes, their kids will bring them in and said, she's getting demented. It's like, okay, estrogen helps with dementia tremendously. But, I think that looking at it that way, we're before menopause or in menopause. Okay, so anybody, it doesn't matter what their period is. Did you know that women can have regular, consistent periods for 3 to 4 years and be completely menopausal?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the least accurate ways of determining if a woman is in menopause.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for example, I'll have a 36-year-old come in and say, Prudence, I don't know what's going on. I've gained, 15 pounds and I can't sleep and I just feel angry all the time. And I'll look at her hormones and I see very subtle signs. Now, what day of the period was your blood drawn on? It was on day 6. her level is 30 and it should be 150. So I'm looking at those kinds of things and say, okay, so you're 30, you need to be 60 or 130. So let's bring you to that level.
Mm.
And so she never goes into menopause. She just doesn't go into menopause. She stays with her hormones as they are. And, I think some people really feel that they can get rid of the symptoms of menopause, and that is great with herbs and lifestyle and detoxification, all those things I'm very supportive of. But you want to prevent dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease, estradiol. You want to build your bones, estradiol. You want to prevent multiple different types of cancer, estradiol. So it's a preventative strategy for aging youthfully, healthily, vitally. So you look so young, Melanie. I was thinking you were 35. You look beautiful.
Just thank you. Reverse those numbers, and that's my age.
No.
Yeah. I haven't had any biological children. I have a lovely stepdaughter, but no kids. So I figured that I didn't get to have all those sleepless nights, if anything. And perhaps it's a nice Zoom filter.
That's great. Well, Melanie, you look beautiful, absolutely wonderful. And I'm 74, so
wow,
we're both doing well.
Okay. You look amazing.
Well, I feel so we have a biological age. Can we impact that? Enormously on every level. We have a spiritual age. Can we impact that? Yes. We have a psychological age. Yes, we can impact it. Chronological age, we can't change. We just can't change that, but we can certainly change the others. And when you change those three of those, your entire life changes. You aren't even the same person.
It makes me think of a car, the analogy of we can buff and polish the outside, but really it's what's under the hood that makes it a useful vehicle. We need to be servicing it and oil changing and doing all of the things under the hood that you don't see that make it a functional car. And I look at the people that are just buffing and polishing the outside and wondering, how stressed are you and what are you consuming and how are you treating yourself and how are you talking to yourself? And it doesn't matter what you do on the outside, those stresses on the inside and those imbalances actually age you way faster than you realize.
100%. That's a great analogy. Where these little cars racing around. I'm a Ferrari, but I have a bicycle engine.
Exactly. Prudence, thank you so much for our conversation today. It's been really enlightening, and I love some of the concepts that you've described because it feels very positive, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will feel hopeful and optimistic about their menopause journey and their, or should I call it their hormonal journey rather than their menopause journey perhaps. And we will put some links to your social media and website and so on in the notes for this episode. But is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with before we wrap up today?
Well, it's our responsibility and our joy really as humans to, and I've sort of said this before earlier, but to know who we are and then to allow that essence of who we are be expressed in the world. And one of the greatest ways to be joyful is to be in service. Not necessarily trying to save the world. And that could be a mission that's defeating. But, it's small acts of service and helping and being neighborly and being kind and loving kindness. Those are so important in terms of our own personal joy and happiness. And when we're joyful and happy, we live longer. That was pretty established a number of years ago, about 40 years ago. So may you feel joyful and happy and be in service and be an expression of who you truly are.
What a wonderful way to wrap up. Thank you so much, Prudence. We really look forward to gauging the response to this episode, and we'll definitely share your details with everyone so that they can find out more about you. Thanks again.